Hey everybody, I'm Paulie G. Welcome back to the Paulie G Show, coming to you live from high atop Mount Georgia. How y'all doing? Great to be back here with you today. I hope you're doing well. And I'm here today with a guitar that is about as rare as hen's teeth, which is an Epiphone Hummingbird in Koa. Acacia Koa is what they call it. I hope I'm pronouncing Acacia correctly. Anyway, again, this is another one of these just really unusual finds that I seem to stumble upon when I decide to pick up a model of a guitar. So we all know that Epiphone in the last 5 years has reopened the Samick factory in Indonesia, where they've been building supreme quality versions of the old Epiphone models like the Frontier and the Excellente, but also building the Masterbuilt series of the inspired by Gibson acoustics. You know, the J45s, the Hummingbirds, the J200s, etc. And they've been doing some fantastic stuff. And I already have the J45, which I am absolutely crazy about. Maybe a little less so with the J200, but that was only my experience. Don't go solely by me. Get out there and play one if you want one. I'm sure there's good ones out there. But anyway, the one in the collection that I didn't have, and I saw so many great reviews on, I got so many recommendations on, was the inspired by Gibson Hummingbird. So I started to poke around the internet just to see what's out there and see about maybe catching a deal on one somewhere, because you go to the stores and they're almost never there. So they're really hard to find, at least, where I live. I'm sure if you live in a major city with a major guitar center, something like that, you might get lucky and they might have one in stock that you can play. But for the most part, around where I live, that's kind of hard to find. So anyway, poking around the internet, and I came upon this just stunning looking hummingbird. I'd never seen anything like it. And I just started to look into this thing and try to figure out what the heck it was or is. And what it is, or what the ad said, was that it's a Epiphone Hummingbird Pro in Acacia Koa. And it's solid Koa, top solid Koa, back and sides. The neck looked to be mahogany. But as rare as this is, rarer still were any specs on it. I never saw one before, ever, in the U.S. So couldn't find any information on it. So before I bought it, I just went ahead and wrote to Gibson/Epiphone and asked them if they knew what the heck this thing was. Was it really an Epiphone? Is it a counterfeit? And then I thought, well, if they were going to counterfeit a guitar, if you were going to make a Gibson, right, you probably wouldn't copy an Epiphone. What would be the point, right? You'd label it a Gibson and try to sell it as a Gibson, right? So I figured it was probably really an Epiphone. I just didn't know where or why or how this was made. So Epiphone was great. In a couple days, they wrote right back to me, gave me a full spec sheet on the guitar. And the way it turns out is that they had a batch of Koa material at the Samick factory, and they decided to make a very limited run of these hummingbirds with this solid Koa, beautiful Koa wood. And this was not for the U.S. They didn't have enough of them to sell in the U.S., so they only sold them in Japan, which is where I actually got this guitar. It's just only been here for a few days, so it's still acclimating to Mount Georgia from Tokyo. So they gave me the full spec sheet on it and told me exactly what it's made of and when it was made and so forth. So what we have is, again, a solid Koa top and back and sides. We've got a Pau Ferro bridge, Pau Ferro fretboard, mother of pearl split parallelogram inlays. The tuners, I think, are some version of a Clouson. it's whatever they're using on all of the the Masterbuilt acoustics that they're doing over there. But I was glad to know that it was made in the Samick factory, and that was the selling point for me because if it was made in the China factory, I probably wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't have bought the guitar because the acoustics that are coming out of the Epiphone China factory, I'm not thrilled about. But anything coming out of the Masterbuilt factory, I was willing to roll the dice on it, even though I hadn't played the guitar and it was being sold from a dealer that was selling it used, so I wasn't sure about the condition. But anyway, I decided to roll the dice on it and had it for a few days. And I have to say, again, this it's a beautifully crafted guitar. That factory, the work that they're doing is really incredible. The fretwork, the neck, everything is just perfection. I mean, in terms of the craftsmanship, it's flawless. It really is. I mean, they just do amazing stuff. I've never owned a Koa guitar before. Not many guitar companies really work with Koa all that much. Every once in a while, you'll see a Martin or a Gibson with a little bit of Koa on it, maybe a Koa back and sides. But Taylor, I think, might have an all Koa model, but they're about the only ones. So it's not a tone wood that I'm with which I'm all that familiar. So again, that was another little bit of a gamble. But I wanted a hummingbird. I wanted an Epiphone Hummingbird, and I always like the unusual, as you know from seeing some of my other videos. So I rolled the dice on it, and here it is. And I've only had it for a few days. And what I'm learning from playing it is that Koa is a very bright sounding wood. There's not a lot of bass resonance in it yet. Now, maybe it needs to open up. Maybe it has a lot of humidity still in it from being in Asia. That's a possibility. Although it's not, it's not bellied. The action is perfect, so it's not like it's swollen or anything like that. But I'm gonna let it dry out for a little bit and see if it opens up a little bit more and just keep strumming it because I do find it a little bit on the bright side. Which, again, for recording purposes, sometimes that's exactly what you want. If you've already got bass and drums and, the lower frequencies covered, sometimes a guitar like this is going to fit right in that zone that you want. So it might be great for that. I don't know. But I'm hoping that it does open up a little bit more. I'm just going to keep playing it and see. But it's a gorgeous piece. But unfortunately, I can't tell you where to get one because they're just not available in the U.S. They never made them for the U.S. It was only a limited release in Japan, and I just sort of got lucky and found it. So that's about it. I may at some point. One thing I can say for sure is that it doesn't sound anything like a Gibson Hummingbird, and it probably has very little in common with the inspired by Gibson mahogany versions of the Hummingbird. Which I still may want at some point, because this isn't that guitar. It's something kind of altogether different. Not worse or better, just different. So we'll see. But I just wanted to share this with you. It's an unusual one, but it's a fun guitar to play. And I thank you for tuning in. I've got a few more really, really cool guitars that I'm going to be reviewing very, very soon. So go ahead and, if you can, stick around to the channel. And next week I have something pretty juicy that I'm going to do a demo on. I think you'll enjoy it. So thanks as always for tuning in. It's great to be with you. And until next time, this is Paulie G reminding you that when it comes to guitars, you only need one. More. See you next time.